Good afternoon. On behalf of Mycogen Seeds, my name is Jamie Meyer, and I'm so pleased that you all could join us today. We're really excited to be bringing you the Selz-Pralle Dairy Virtual Farm Tour. It's been a pleasure working with Scott and Pam to put this together and learning all about what a persnickety dairy farm is. It's been an absolute wonderful learning experience for myself, as well as the rest of our team. At this time, I'd like to ask our Mycogen team that's here in the room to go ahead and stand. At Mycogen, we are here to support you. We're excited that we have a few BMR customers here in the room. We want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to support our customers. You'll hear Pam say this a few times throughout the presentation today, that we really are all in this together, and we want to make sure that our customers are successful. So with that, please silence your cell phones so we can have a great presentation. This is all on live webcast on worlddairyexpo.com, and if you want to refer back to it later, it will also be in the library there at World Dairy Expo in the virtual farm tour section. So with that, I'll give you Scott and Pam Pralle.
Good afternoon. Well, let's have a little confession here first. We've had 6 farm tours this week. And we would go back and do all 6 of them over because we're much more comfortable having our work boots on, standing behind the cows, and having conversations with farmers. And so we are just glad that you're here, and we thank you for coming to join us and to learn a little bit more about Selz-Pralle Dairy. We think that today the best part of the program is going to be the questions and see what we can do for conversation. And when Mycogen has a nice little gift for us at the end so we can keep the conversations going. This is a picture of our dairy. It's the original farm. I'm going to point out a few things because just so when you look at the video, you'll understand a few things. This is our original barn that we milked, our tie stall barn. We had 120 cows we milked in there when I first came home to farm with my dad. This is going to be the barn that we have converted, our tie stall barn, into our maternity barn. So we freshen all of the cows there. It's probably the best $6,000 we've ever invested because that's what we invested to transition that barn. This barn here is our bull barn. We have sold about 60 to 100 bulls to dairymen across the state and into other states as well. And that is also the most profitable building of the barn because when I was a little girl, we used to raise poultry chickens in it. And this area here, of course, is our new calf barn. What we did is we built a new dairy down the road. So you'll see some different pictures in the video, and I thought I'd maybe give you a little information when you can see there's the 2 different farms. This farm, we have no lactating animals on it. We freshen the cows in the maternity barn, and then after a couple of milkings, we transition them up to the milking parlor. Okay? We are a family farm, and we're really proud that our children have decided that agriculture is a great place to have a career. Our daughter on the right is Jessica. She works in the cow care team at a 2,000 cow dairy. She has dreams of coming back to the home farm. We gave her just a little challenge. If you want to come back home, you have to be smart enough to generate $80,000 more income. So when she figures that out, we're hoping that she'll come home so that she can make us a lot of money. Our son Ryan, he doesn't have any clue what money is. He lives in the research world, and he would rather live on a lab budget than worrying about himself. He is just finalizing his PhD at the UW-Madison under Dr. Heather White. He's specializing in the biochemistry of dairy cows, especially in the area of ketosis. And then the baby of the family is here with us today. This is Nicole. She's a senior at the UW-Madison. She's had a busy week. She judged on the collegiate dairy judging team and has some success there. And she has a 3-year-old here that she showed on Tuesday, and she's back in the ring on Saturday. This is the facility where the milking herd is. And I've told you about the locations, and so what we want to tell you here, just as Jamie's going to start the video, they helped us put a video together that tells a lot about the farm, and they did such a really good job that we decided we're going to just play the video 8 times. No, the truth is they did an excellent job of giving a broad brush strokes of what we do on the farm. And so Scott and I have picked out a couple areas that we're going to focus on a little bit, but what we're here for is really to answer your questions and to work with you, because together as breeders and as farmers sharing our information, it all makes us better in agriculture.
little bit about our farming operation here at Selz-Pralle Dairy. We own and rent 800 crop acres. Alfalfa and corn are our main crops that we grow here on the farm. We also have 450 milk cows, another 450 young stock that we raise, all registered herd. Been in my wife's family for over 100 years.
We were milking at 120 cows in the traditional tie stall barn, and in 1998 we decided we had young children and we wanted a lifestyle more like other people who don't farm. To do that, we needed to expand to 600 cows. Well, that was a little aggressive for us, so we decided we would expand to 400 cows, be able to hire enough people so that we could have enough time for everybody to have some time off and have a little bit better lifestyle.
Our parlor facility, built in 1998, we have a double 10 parallel Bomatic system. We capture milk weights on a daily basis for 3 times a day milking. It's timed, so every cow is milked at the same time limit, and you're done, and you go back out to your hotel and get back to work and eating and exercising and relaxing. Also a rapid exit system where the cows are able to move out freely and quickly.
Now we milk cows with teat scrubbers, and the first cow and the 400th cow are prepped exactly the same. By using the system, we just have no mastitis. I think we went for almost 2 months with no mastitis, no treating mastitis. So it's allowed us to be better cow managers for healthier cows.
The SCR system that we put in back in 2012, it's been something that's really helped us in our farm operation.
What it really does, it lets us listen to the cows sooner.
Right.
They can talk to us sooner by the changes in their rumination or activity.
I'd rather jump on them early than later as far as taking care of them and figuring out if they are sick or what the problem may or may not be. If you listen to the system and don't overthink it, you can really do a lot of good things with it.
We're going to introduce you to our new calf barn. We have just moved into a group feeding where we're going to gang feed the calves. We background them in our maternity barn for 2 weeks, and they will be moved into our new barn that is positive pressure ventilated. We're expecting to have better, healthier calves, which grow into healthier cows, which produce more milk and hopefully a healthy profit. We're looking at the solids that we ship out every day. That's really the trigger that's going to hit our bottom line. So our goal is 7 pounds of combined fat and protein a day per cow. So if our feeding program is such that we drop below 100 pounds, we still need to make sure those components are right up above 7 pounds combined fat and protein.
The BMR has been a very positive effect on our cows, not only for production-wise, because we've seen the production bump from that, anywhere from the 3 to 5 pounds, but also just the health of the cows. We can tell by the difference in the rumination of the cows, and it really shows up with the BMR.
More profit per acre.
Yeah.
That's really what
really
BMR did. It gave us more profit opportunity per acre. As long as we harvested it correctly and processed it, and probably the most important, how we pack it and store it. But if you do all those things right, then we've noticed we get more profit per acre and more profit per cow.
Another thing that we had changed over the years is our sand. We started out with a type of a sand that would come out of a pit that was more of a clay type pit. So the sand would come in and it was wet, would have clay in it. We would have mastitis a couple days after we put the sand in. It got to be very frustrating.
We were so struggling. We brought all the experts in, trying to figure out why our cell count wasn't lower. A few loads of frac sand.
A few loads of frac sand later, things started to change. It was clean, it was washed. The year we started that, about 4 years ago or so, our cell count dropped about 100,000, like now. We deep bed the sands and they are groomed on a daily basis. Usually we're putting sand in once a week. They have enough for those 7 days.
High producing cows produce a lot of manure. Of course, we follow a 590 plan. We found that when we started putting the liquid manure and giving the nitrogen credits, we actually reduced our fertilizer bill by about 30% because we had to purchase less fertilizer when we started using more data to become better manure stewards.
We run a 2-stage manure pit, basically, is what we do. Everything gravity flows from our barn and goes into our first pit, which is a smaller pit where all the sand settles out and the manure solids settle out. And then the overflow is the liquid which goes into a larger pit.
Besides cow comfort and good nutrition and making sure they have a nice hotel to stay in, I think genetics are really a driver here. We've always believed in cows with really good feet and udders that work and wear. We've been averaging over 100 pounds a day for 10 years here and creating a reputation of high producing cows and breeding cows that have a lot of longevity. They need to be athletes who can be competitive in the environment we give them. And we believe that strong front ends, that type of dairy strength so they can get to the feed bunk so they can consume high volumes of feed. Because at the end of the day, our goal is easy. We want that cow that she lays down, she has her calf, she gets up, she goes to the feed bunk, she transitions right away and hits peak milk, breathes right back, dries off, and we start the process all over again. We like easy. And that's kind of what we try to breed for, easy cows.
2017 for us was a good year with the accomplishment that our cow Aftershock 3918 came up with the world production record. Something that you really never dream about.
She was kind of sneaky about it. Any day here we have cows milking 150 pounds of milk a day. So when we had cows milking 200, it wasn't anything unusual. One day Scott came to the house, he says, "You know, Pam, we've got a cow that's been milking over 200 pounds a day for almost 6 months.
She's definitely an overachiever, a little bit of a genetic freak, I guess you would call her. She knows what she's here for, and she just does it on a daily basis, and she's just a blue-collar cow that knows what she's here to do. I guess the big thing is being consistent, having the protocols in place, and then have the people that buy into the same program that we like. My feeder is just phenomenal, whether it's shaving the bunker, feeding the cows, how much gets put in front of the cows. It's done the same way every day on a daily basis, and that's really what you need to have.
We listen to cows. We sincerely listen to cows, how they react. We monitor, we've invested in technology to monitor them closely so that we can take cow comfort to new levels, because we really focus on what the cows are telling us, and we do that by the rumination, their tracking, and by the milk production. When we meet dairy farmers, we want to know that, yeah, we're a farm that really focuses on high production and we really believe in real strong cows, but we have a lot of respect for the different ways that dairy people farm. No matter how a farmer does it, we want to let them know we respect them and we work with them, and we need to learn from each other. And that's the way the dairy industry is going to be surviving and sustainable.
Well, thank you all for coming. We'll see you next year. Pam is obviously the better speaker of the family, and I'm okay with that. I'll try to give you a few nuggets about what we do on the farm here and there, try to drive some questions along the way. And we'll start out with our breeding philosophy. As Pam had mentioned in the beginning, it's all about an agile cow, being able to walk freely through the parlor from barn to barn, get to the feed bunk, and be able to just go and do her thing. So in our breeding program, I work and look for cows that are bulls that give strong front ends. Good feet and legs is one of the main drivers, and then udders. We want the udders to be high off the ground, keep it away from the manure as much as possible so we can keep our low cell count. We also look at the health traits. It's a big driver today. And as she mentioned earlier as well, the component side of things, striving for that 7 pounds of crude fat and protein per cow. We like to go through the barn and look at cows like these on a daily basis. That's what makes it fun to get up, because we know that not every day are we making a lot of money doing the job that we do. Here are a few nuggets that we put up on about our few herd facts about our cows. In the picture there is one of our pride and joys, is a 94.3E shuttle daughter out of one of our main cow families that goes back to a cow by the name of Eldor Saber Pansy, who back in the 80s was one of the perennial show cows here at World Dairy Expo. 450 cows, one cow at a time. I guess growing up, I was taught that by my dad quite a bit. And in fact, it was probably because I got thrown into it. My dad was a crop person, so I got to be the cow guy. So I learned to listen to cows, watch cows, and hear what they were saying. And with the technologies nowadays, we've invested heavily in technology, not only with the Bomatic milking parlor system, Dairy Comp 305, capturing all the information we can from that, but also with the SCR system, rumination and activity. Rumination, you can get both with SCR, with the activity, but the big thing is the rumination. You look at the slide and it says reduce DAs by 80%. A year ago we did that. I said, man, they must have had a lot of DAs. 8, and we went down to 4. I never dreamt in my life that milking this many cows I would be able to do that with the ration that we feed to get the cows to make the milk that they do. Ketosis, 65%. That's also a very low number. I believe it was 13, and then we reduced it from there. And that has obviously reduced our drug cost tremendously. And when we're using the rumination system, we can pick up cows very early before they even know they're sick. And it says 1 to 2 days. That's probably close to right. Everybody utilizes the SCR system differently. I watch the rumination minutes per cow per day, and cows show up on what I call the naughty list. So I know which cows that I have to check every day. And my list is usually 3 to 5. Some days I walk in and I look at that screen and it's blank and I'm like, system must be down today. Doesn't happen every day, but it's a great day when I see that, and I don't have to look at a particular cow for probably having something that is wrong with her. And like I said, on my normal days, 3 to 5. And when they get to about 200 minutes in rumination, that's when I start looking for problems that are coming on. We've eliminated a lot of things with the activity as far as calvings. We're breeding cows rather than just typically every week on the off-sync program. We're breeding cows now on a daily basis. So that's stretched everything out. Otherwise, when we were having calvings, they were 20 this week. 2 weeks later, we'd have another 20. Now everything is streamlined. It's a lot easier for us. And basically the big thing that we saw from this system, we thought it was probably going to be close to a 3-year payback on the SCR system, and it was 18 months. Totally blew us away on what we learned from the system and how we work it. Now this happens to be a slide that we actually took about a week ago on a cow that came up, just to show you something that can happen. This cow actually tanked in the middle of the night. Rumination went 0. So I'm like, I'm gonna have a dead cow in the morning. When it's hits 0, it's not a good sign. I got out there in the morning and thought, okay, checked her over, came up, she had ketosis. And I happened to talk to one of the people with SCR, and he said, Scott, I seen that, you're gonna ship her, right? Get her on a truck, get her out. And I said, oh no, give me a day. The next day, she was back up to close to 400. We hit her right away, pumped her, treated her for her ketosis, and she's been going non-stop. We just do preventative maintenance after that. And basically what's bringing everybody to see us today, healthy cows and a world record cow. And without BMR, I don't know if we could have got this done with the way BMR feeds for the cows. This cow is on her 5th lactation. As of last week, she had 287,000 pounds of milk out. She's been milking for, see, I looked this morning before we left. Been milking for 1,862 days. She had her first health event 1,680 days in the midst of her lactations, of her 5 lactations. So she went 4 full lactations without a health event, and then she got in, I think it was about 140 some days, and she had a little mastitis flare up. Looked nigh unto death one day, and the next day she was back going at it. She's just been kind of a remarkable cow. But the thing is with her, she's at the bunk or she's resting. She's always chewing her cud 600 minutes a day. So that's 10 hours out of the day. And our herd average is right around 570 minutes a day. So she is above what she's supposed to be doing. And over those 1,862 days, she's averaged throughout her lifetime when milking 154 pounds. I would never have dreamt that I'd ever have a cow that could produce that much milk. And this happens to be a slide from the 4th lactation when she was making the record. And we thought we would just check it to see, well, what's odd about it? The odd thing is how flat it is. Nothing happens. She never shows up on the naughty list because she's doing her job, she's performing, she's eating, she's laying down, and she's just working. That's the cool thing about this cow. Okay. Is that all? One more? Oh, okay. Now one day Pam got trigger happy and she decided she needed needed to take a slide of what she really does get coming off the computer. And she does go up and down, but we have 7-day labor efficient records, so you'll have days where she'll bounce 15, 20 pounds a day. There'll be days that she'll come and you can look at the computer and she'll have over 100 pounds a day in one milking. Or she might have 60 in a milking. It's never consistent that way. She's antsy. I'm going to give it back to her and let her talk.
Actually, this cow is just darn ornery. She has a mind of her own. She's got the funny stories are about her is that the milkers told us that they know she's a high producing cow because they always have to put the milker on her first. And they said they also know because she is the first one up when they come up into the holding area and she stands there. She lets the first cows go in for the first turn. So the first 10 cows go in and she stands there. And she waits for the next 2 cows to go in when they get done, and she bullies her way. She's always got to be the 3rd one into the parlor. She just has a very consistent, persnickety way about her as well. So we get this question all the time, and we really don't know. People say, well, how do you get so much milk out of your cows? We've even had people come to our farm and ask for copies of our ration. Last week there was a group from Chile, and they asked to have a very detailed analysis of our ration. And whenever people ask like that, we chuckle a little bit because it's not a perfect ration that gives you high producing cows, because you all here milking cows, you all have a perfect ration at home. Your nutritionist gives it to you with all the science behind it. And it doesn't take a perfect barn. Trust me, all of our barns are repurposed. Even our new freestall barn is old. It has some old technology in it and old ventilation in it. So it's not a new barn. It's not a perfect ration. Really, it's everything else that goes into it. It's that healthy, happy cow. Now you may think, you have to have the sand, you have to have the cross vent ventilation. I don't think that's really what it is. To have that really, truly healthy, happy cow, it's the little things that we all can do. It's fly control. It's pushing in feed. It's stocking density. Making sure the milkers don't run the cows up to the parlor that they walk. I always tell them good music, but they don't listen to that very much. But it's all those little things, because what we're trying to do to have high producing cows, is minimize 3 things. And everybody has a different recipe to get there. And what we do every day and use all of our technology to get the basics right, we want to try to minimize stress. We want to minimize rumen stress. We do that through good feeds. We want to minimize environmental stress. And we want to minimize health stress. And that's how we're going to get those healthy cows. And we do that by trying to be consistent. I think I just turned it off. Is that or my husband turned it off? Yeah, he's happy about that one. So we just want to listen to the cows. And that's why some people, I can't remember who is it, Roger the other day was at the farm and we asked him, what do we say? He said, you're cow whisperers. Anybody can be a cow whisperer if you just watch the science and invest in the technologies. And we're kind of stingy when we invest into something. I mean, who builds a maternity barn for $6,000 because they're too tight to build a brand new one? And when we were looking at improving the ventilation in our barn, we were going to do, what kind of ventilation? Tunnel ventilation. It was going to cost us about $300,000. And we decided, are we going to get enough milk to pay for $300,000 of having tunnel ventilation in our barn because we read in all those magazines how it's the best? So Scott said, you know what, I'm just going to put in 32 more fans. Yep, for $70,000, we improve the animal health, minimize stress in their environment without having the cost of new facilities. So it's all things that we can do, but it's not the obvious things that help us. It's a team of people who are committed to all the little things, from even our policy on walking cows to the parlor instead of running them. Okay, here's our new and exciting thing that's happened at the farm, at least new for me. My parents apparently were abusive. They heard that calf hutches were the way to raise calves, and they had 3 children, and so they decided we were going to do calf hutches. So throughout my life, I was out in the cold in Wisconsin, and when it was raining, we were feeding calves in calf hutches. And as soon as my youngest sister went to college, my parents decided that they needed to put those calf hutches in a shed. So they built a pole barn and put the calf hutches inside the shed, and that worked really well for 25 years. But then we started feeding calves more food. We started giving them more calories. And we started increasing the amount that we fed the calves. And so I read all of this, and I got calf envy, and I wanted to have big, growthy calves like everybody else. So we increased our volume that we fed the calves, and we were feeding them twice a day. And then I read that, and we were getting 1.8 pounds of gain a day. And I thought that was pretty good, but I wanted what I read about in the magazines. I want the 2.5. So we went to 3-time-a-day calf feeding for up to 3 gallons a day for 3 feedings. And we got them up there. We were at 2.4, 2.5, but they were nice and big and chubby, but when they went into the weaning pen, they wouldn't eat grain. They just wouldn't eat grain. And then we'd have like a little slump. And so I decided, well, I didn't like paying for that extra feed, and I didn't like paying my extra feeding, and I didn't like having to struggle with calves because we were pulling them out of the weaning pens back into the huts because they weren't eating starter. So I did a lot of begging, and I told my husband how much we needed a calf barn. The other thing we had with all these extra calories, what happens? There's extra urination. And so we were getting, we put all kinds of fans in the barn, removing all kinds of fan over the top of the huts, but the air was not getting inside the hut. Does anybody else have this problem, or was it just me in Humbird, Wisconsin? So we decided we needed to go to a new calf barn. We went and priced out auto feeder barns. This is what we're going to do. We're going to have the best calves because we know healthy cows start with healthy calves. Then we had sticker shock. It was $425,000 to $450,000 for 80 calves in an auto feeder barn. That was without all the other stuff. And that was penciling out to about $5,500 to $6,000 per calf. At 400 cows, we just couldn't do it. So we went to a Holstein meeting, and we were on a farm tour. And while everybody else was looking at the cows, I saw they had a new calf barn, and I snuck over and looked at their calf barn. It was awesome. It was mob feeding. Now, when we looked at that, and I said, Scott, this is the perfect world. We get the advantages of groups, but we also can have a lower price tag to get there. So we did. Lucky for us, we had a barn fire. Nicole was studying in Italy. I came home from Italy, and my husband had fire trucks waiting for me. And it was a shed fire with a bunch of hay in it, but we took that money and we invested into this new calf barn. And I really like it. The biggest problem we have is the first day, everybody wanted to feed calves. We had 3 people running the milk taxi to feed calves. Labor efficiency didn't work there. But this barn cost $156,000 to build. And I just penciled out all the numbers before I came here. I mean, everything, including the shovels and the carts and everything, we're going to be just short of $200,000 for 100 calves in mob feeding the calves. And if you have a lot of questions, we can talk about that later. One of the things that we started doing when we went to this mob feeding, thank you people for not giving me the stink eye. Usually whenever we said mob feeders, that we're building a new calf barn, and they'll say, what kind? And we'll say, we're going to group feed and mob feed. And everybody gives us a stink eye about how our calves are going to die. And I saw it from you. I'm just kidding. And so one of the other things we started is that we started taking colostrum and we were freezing ice cubes. And so after they get done with their first 2 colostrum feedings, we have some transitional milk, and then we go to milk replacer. And for the first 2 weeks while I'm backgrounding them, in our old barn, we've turned these stalls into some backgrounding pens. We give them these frozen ice cubes with colostrum. Now, you're not going to get all those IgGs like you do when we give them that 1.5 gallons in the first, 8 hours of life. What we're looking for is to get a coating on the stomach and have some of that immunity, assist them in maintaining the good bacteria. Now, we have the lectures all the time with our staff that, if you feed them bacteria, I don't care how much colostrum they're going to get, it's still giving them bacteria overload. But we've gone to feeding the cubes of colostrum. I don't know if it's working, but I can tell you what, we do have less scours. This is our calf barn. We put them in there. We put them in groups of 5. I've been asked why groups of 5 and why not an even number, because they like a friend. Well, now they have 4 friends because they do everything together. If one calf goes to eat, they all go to eat. If one calf goes to drink, they all go to drink. If one calf lays down, they're usually all laying in the back in a corner in a cluster. And one of the big things we love about this is the ventilation. It's a little bit different. We have the positive pressure, so this is where the air comes in here and it goes out the other end. And the static, I believe, is perfect, because when you open the door on the other end, there's no suction, there's no reverse pressure. We do live in Wisconsin, so we sometimes in the winter time, we need some air that comes from the outside that's going to bring in the air during the winter. Everything is a variable speed off of fans, temperatures, and humidity. We opted not to have the tubes that are more popular because we talked to enough people who had some problems or a lot of cleaning. This was less maintenance. So when we brought in a fogger and they fogged the barn, at first it didn't work perfectly. And we were persnickety and we said, we didn't pay for all these fans for them not to work perfect. And so they came back a few times and we've got this adjusted. When they smoke the barn, these fans, oscillating fans, are constantly in each pen blowing the air down in. Because the most important air in the calf barn is the 18 inches above the bedding pack, right? We don't care about everything else. So I didn't realize how good a job we were doing until the other day. My girlfriend Heather says, how did you handle all those temperature changes? What temperature changes? On her barn, they have the natural ventilation where all the curtains go up and down. And some of those questions we talked to people about where the rain would come in or they couldn't make an adjustment or they had problems because they lost power. And so then they couldn't get the curtains to move. And we listened to all of those things and we opted to go for the skylight panels and the controlled. And so we do not have those moderations in temperature in this barn. It's fairly constant all the time. Now, we haven't got into Wisconsin January yet. Call me up then and we'll see how things are going. And then the other thing we were worried about was drainage. What we do is we have a gravel base. And so it's cement down the middle, but we had the limestone gravel base underneath. We have found we've tried some different products right now to help dry it out. We're experimenting with that. What I can tell you are some of the things that we've seen so far in 3 months. We have doubled starter intake. I mean, I didn't expect that. And we're doubling it, not at 2 months when we're weaning them, we're doubling it at 2 weeks. Those calves are coming in from the backgrounding pen. They're getting off the mob feeder and they're going right to the feed trough. Not one calf, because one follows the other. So all of a sudden we've got calves in 2 weeks going after the feed trough. Didn't expect that. Of course, along with that, they eat more grain, you get more fluid consumption, so they're drinking more water. Because we had a problem before, we only had a 1% cull rate, or death rate, less than 1% mortality rate in our old barn, as much as I complained about it. But we popped fevers every day, and we were always going through treatment protocols for fevers. If it had a 102.5, we treated it, because we knew it was going to get worse. In this barn, I went and looked at the chart yesterday morning. We haven't had one fever since the first week of September. Not one. We have checked them, and now we've decided that we're going to wait till they get to 103 before we're going to do any type of treatment. And of course, we're not going to go whole hard on the drugs either. We're going to use some secondary treatments, support treatments. That is the biggest thing we've seen. We've also seen a reduction in scours. We're not quite sure what it is. If it's because they're consuming more grain earlier, so their rumen is getting adjusted faster, or if it's those magic ice cubes. I don't know, but they're nice big ice cubes, so if they don't work for their calves, they're coming in my house for cocktails at my house. So I've got a plan for that. What we did learn real fast is nipple sanitation. We had them come through and test the inside of our taxi, and they were 0 on the inside of the taxi, 0 on the inside of our feeders, and 8 million in the nipples. So now we floss the nipples after every feeding. We're using less bedding. I think Scott told me we were using 50% less straw for these same calves as we did before. And at the end of the day, I can't sing, but it's all about the air. It's all about the air. It's all about the air. So that's a quick stroll through Selz-Pralle Dairy. We are really, we told you about a few different things, and we're really looking forward to your questions. We're up here today and have had a little bit of luck with the cow and have a little bit of success in the bulk tank because we have a lot of partners that have helped us get here today. We have a fantastic nutrition team, and we have a fantastic veterinarian that works with us real closely. Our milking equipment team is a part of it, and our cropping team. So if anybody here is a part of our team that's here today, could you just, do a quick stand? I see us, so stand up. Anybody who's a part of contributing to ours? And I think the most important thing, thanks guys. Yeah, you're a late stander, but we'll get you. And I think most importantly, it's our team at home, our farm staff. They're not here today. And they probably are the ones that should be here today, and we're home doing the work. Because they're there every day. They deserve to be in the front row. They are terrific, and we are blessed to have them work with us. And we can't appreciate that enough. I wish I could throw their pictures up here and tell you their names, but that wouldn't be a good thing either. So we also want to thank Mycogen for sponsoring Selz-Pralle Dairy. We always knew they were a great company, and we always believed that they had the best, in our opinion, the best BMR product out there. And we know that BMR corn silage has made us a lot of money. But now when you start working with the people and you learn the heart of an organization, we've learned that they provide more services than just a good product. They have a lot of heart for the benefit of farmers. So thank you, Mycogen, for sponsoring us. Because at the end of the day, their theme is perfect. We are better together. Our farm is better because of the partners we work with. We're all better together because we're here today to talk about agriculture. So don't be afraid to ask the questions, because those people I had stand up, they're going to answer the hardest questions today. And then Jamie has a little something she's going to tell you about after we have some of the questions here. And then, oh, that's right, Jamie, you gave me a slide. Jamie, would you like to invite everybody?
Sure. As Mycogen Seeds has our lounge over in the front of the New Holland Pavilion, we'll go through a little Q&A here. But if you have questions that you'd like to ask one-on-one As everybody exits, we'll give you a few complimentary beverage tickets. And we're going to have a nice reception where you guys can interact with Scott and Pam and ask some additional questions and just keep the conversation going. So at the end, we'll give you the tickets at the door, and then you'll go around. The New Holland Pavilion is just right out here, and we're right in the front of that in the Mycogen Seeds Lounge. So with that, I think we'd like to open it up for some questions. I'll bring the microphone over. Who's our first contestant? Right here.
I don't think it's a contest. Congratulations, folks, with all your success. However, Scott mentioned longevity, and I am curious about the average lifetime production of the cows that go to slaughter, so that leave the farm as cow cows.
Well, we were very fortunate that we have very long-lived cows. I think our herd average right now for age is like 4 years and 6 months. Our cull rate is quite low at 18%. So cows don't leave as long as they're productive, breed back, and stay healthy. Right now, I think as the slide had, we've got quite a large number of cows that are over 100,000 and 200,000. I think there's a couple dozen over 200,000 at this point in time. So unless they do have those issues with not breeding back or a high cell count, they can stay around as long as they're productive.
One thing that we also do is that one of our marketing goals, a few years back we decided instead of investing in more concrete, we were going to leverage our genetics. So we sell about 80 to 100 cows out of the barn. That's about 20% of the milking herd is our goal. Now that hasn't happened this year because of depressed milk prices, so we've got cows coming out of our ears. But that is part of the plan, so it changes a bit when you talk about lifetime production leaving the herd, because our goal is to sell registered cattle out of our herd.
Yeah, the goal is actually to turn over about 20% for dairy purposes in a good year. Obviously not this year. It's not happening. We're actually running about 105% right now in the barn, which to most people doesn't probably seem like a lot. But for us, once we started getting overcrowded, we start seeing effects with mastitis and other issues with feet and whatnot. So we want to keep that number down. And probably after expo time, there will be a few cows that unfortunately will have to have career changes.
Do we have a next question?
It looks like you are 3 for 3 for your next generation picking up in farming and agriculture. I have to ask you, what have you found to be those effective elements and models that have been able to bring your 3 kids into agriculture?
Well, we believe that Manure on Their Shoes is a good training program. We believe in 4-H, we believe in Junior Holstein, and we believe in responsibility. So one of the blessings for us was 4-H, because when you become a larger dairy, they didn't grow up like we did, because you couldn't be with mom and dad milking cows, or you run skid steers and big pieces of equipment. So we kind of did it the old-fashioned way, probably like you farmed out your kids to grow them into great people. We got them in with the best organizations to grow their skills, make them do the work, and when they did it wrong, make them go back and do it again right. We held them accountable. And agriculture is a perfect place to raise your children, to do that, and the perfect organizations to put them in. Thank you.
Next question.
This is directed to Pam. Although I never met your father, I know he's very instrumental in the dairy industry. What values did he install in you?
You know, it's kind of funny. My dad accomplished a lot of things in leadership in agriculture, but the values that stuck were respect, honesty, and humility. Because you could be really big when you get away from home, but you've got to be respectful and contributing. And he also said, don't take more than what you, give back more than what you receive. You owe something to somebody, pay forward, give back more than what you receive. And so I think that and just the basic of respect and honesty and integrity were big factors for my dad. And that's something that everybody can have.
Next question right here.
I guess this is more to Scott. You were saying when you went to the SCR, you were able to get rid of your off-sync programs and all that. How did your days open, conception rate, and all that go? And if you're willing to give it, where you sit now, roughly?
Okay, that's a very good question. Typically, we didn't totally get rid of the off-sync program. We were always on a shot program, but we thought we needed to pull that back, try to let the cows show us tell us what they want us to do. So we still had a fresh cow protocol, and then they would get a second shot of Lutalice 55 to 62 days in their lactation. And what we're doing now is we are breeding off that heat if they show us one. After that, then they will become enrolled into the off-sync program. So every cow has a unit of semen in them by 80 days. And it really hasn't changed our days in milk or days open per se. We typically run around at 165 days in milk to 175 days in milk. And then as far as days open, I believe we're right around that 150 range. That's something I did not look up before coming. And I look at the number of calvings I like per month to make sure we have everything streamlined. And I typically try to run between 42 and 45 calvings per month, which turns into somewhere between 520 and 540 calvings a year. So we have enough replacements to come in to take over for those cows that we hopefully sell, or it will have to be culled from the herd.
Okay, that's okay.
One of the things to think about when you're talking about breeding cows back is don't get hung up with the numbers. Get hung up with what works for your farm. Because we always talk about our cows are really high-producing cows. If we shorten the lactation, we're taking away some easy milk at the end, and we're putting them through always a stress factor. Every time they have a calf, there's a stress factor. And so you really have to find out what works for you. So our days to first breeding is a little bit longer, but our pounds of milk per cow per day is higher. And you have to figure out what your goals are and what it fits into your plan, because sometimes I think we get too hung up into the magic numbers, and the magic numbers are the ones that work best for your farm.
Just wondering a little bit more about your breeding program, genomic sire versus proven sex semen versus not. Things that you more specifically look for when selecting sires.
I try to use a lot more proven bulls than young sires. Now with, I guess you call it the name genomics. Genomics has actually been around for quite a few years. And they're all genomic bulls, no matter whether they're young sires or proven sires. It's harder today with the way and how fast everything is moving with genomics to really jump on a train and run with proven sires all the way. So I try to be in that 60-40 range proven to young sires. Sometimes that's hard. Typically what I do is I'll go and I'll use a young sire. I'll use maybe 20-40 units, maybe a little bit more than that depending upon the pedigree. I'll let those calves hit their ground, get them in a milking string, and go through and do an overview of if I like them or not, and then I will go back and decide whether or not I'm going to use the bull again. That seems to be the big thing for us. Like just recently, I had a group of petty daughters within the last year that were probably the highest group of 2-year-olds I've had for quite a while, as coming out as far as an average. And then another bull would have been Defiant. Now I know Defiant would not be defined a milk bull in our herd. He did a great job. So those are 2 bulls that I actually went back and I used another 20, 30 units of the bull to get more daughters. So fortunately, we've got some long-lived animals, so we still have old bulls in our herd, or cattle in our herd, like Alexanders, Aftershocks, and whatnot. But as I'm picking the young sires for genomics, I tend toward all the health traits. I want them to be positive DPR. I want the feed efficiency number to be plus. And I also want to make sure that they're high in pounds fat and protein, and hopefully over 1,000 pounds of milk. Not saying I won't use a young bull that's lower than 1,000, but he has to have enough good things to want me to use him. So.
What age of calves receive frozen colostrum cubes, and are these cubes mixed with some other liquid feed?
Calves receive it from day 3 till day 10 to 14, depending on when we move them into a group setting. And we feed milk replacer. Our cows are a half a mile down the road, so that milk replacer works best for us. We've seen excellent success, and I already talked to, we're going to be finding out we're going to start our trial on the rate of gains. They're coming out to start weighing calves next week. But the way they're eating starter, I think on 2 time a day feeding, we're going to have healthy enough and robust enough calves. We're going to be pushing that 2.2 pounds per day on gain, just by looking at, don't you think, Scott, how growthy they are? Just taking in that more starter, maybe I should ask my nutritionist pros, but the way they're consuming that starter, and we've now started feeding them hay at 7 weeks. Because they're eating so much starter. I started looking at my starter bill and my milk bill, and I thought we had a little bit of a day of reckoning. And because the manure was getting a little bit too loose. And so we knew that the sooner, I've limited them now to 8 pounds of starter per day. And then they're making that balance in the hay. And we're just seeing some room and traction going on that we're really hoping for some big things.
Probably to add to that, why we haven't gone to utilizing our excess milk is we don't have enough extra milk, and the logistics to get it back and forth, we'd have more of an investment in setting something up so we could transfer everything back and forth, and then buying a pasteurizer and putting that into action, and then just staying with the milk replacer itself.
You know, having 0 mastitis cows every day tends to be a problem. But that does give us the option of milk replacer.
One more question, right here.
Well, I don't want to take the last question, but as far as the Holstein breeds going, what do you use for a program to avoid inbreeding, or are you concerned about that at all?
Oh, I definitely watch it. I think there's really not a lot of ways to get around it unless you use some of the technologies from some of the AI studs. I don't know if Holstein itself is going to promote trying to stay away from it as much as what some of the AI studs are. But with the narrowing a gap of the different sires that we have to use, it's getting tougher and tougher. And so unfortunately, we're going to have to look at it ourselves and watch it diligently so we don't get our numbers too high. I try to stay under 12% as far as inbreeding as much as possible, and a lot of times that's hard, but unfortunately, don't let this out of this room, once in a while I have to use a bull. And it's not something I do, it's mostly on the heifer side, just for a cleanup in our heifer pen, just to watch out for a heifer that may slip a calf along the line somewhere or whatnot. But we have had some very good genetics that have come through from even some of our own bulls that we use as some of our better cows.
Genetics is always the exciting thing for us. We love cows, we love cow families, but The biggest part of the production equation is environment. And right now, as we're seeding genomics and the bull selection going like this, and our facilities and our environment that they're raising the cows in are kind of going like this. So that may give you some opportunities, because you can use some bulls that maybe aren't as tightly bred, because you don't need to go up that high for the genetics. If you don't improve this, the part of the equation that's 75% of milk production, that extreme investment in genetics, you're just not going to get your return on investment. You'd be better off, you know, we talk about this all the time. How many of those highest bulls are we going to chase before we put in, you know, better ventilation, better lighting, maybe wider stalls is what our discussion is now. Our return on investment, which I handle all the books, so I'm big on ROI. The return on investment still is healthy cows, stress-free cows, stress-free rumens, and that seems to be the really magic to make sure we get all the money out of our genetic investment.
At this time, let's give a big round of applause for Scott and Pam and all that they've shared with us.